Good afternoon. I'm John Deeks, editor of Insurance News, and welcome to today's webinar on enhancing collaboration in claims management, brought to you by Vero and Insurance News. As we all know, effective relationships, communication, and collaboration are crucial in the insurer-broker claims dynamic, particularly when it comes to managing complex claims. Today, we have a panel of 3 experts helping us explore how these elements shape the claims process. Michael Knight, Vero's National Manager of Claims Relationships, leads the insurer's claims relationship team across Australia. Michael has been in the insurance industry, mostly in intermediated commercial claims, for more than 30 years. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Well, John, thanks.
Great. Anna Capone, Melbourne branch claims manager at McLardy McShane, has more than 20 years' experience in claims. She began her career in a call centre, then progressed through various departments within insurance companies. A decade ago, she transitioned into a claims management role in broking. Thanks for taking part today, Anna.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Claudia Andretti-Quintal, leader of commercial property claims at Vero, started her career in insurance in 2013 and since then has predominantly worked within claims. She currently leads a team of claims specialists in SME commercial property. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you for having me.
And one thing just to mention before we get going, you will find a Q&A section towards the bottom of your Zoom window. We encourage you to type in questions as you think of them, and then we'll tackle those if we have time at the end. Let's start with you, Michael. Effective communication is central to success across all insurance claims, but in complex commercial claims, a clear strategy is particularly critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we sort of park those sort of high volume, low dollar value claims for a minute and just focus on the sort of more complex claims issues that we deal with quite regularly, I think that a clear claim strategy is a way to resolve these claims amicably amongst all parties. I think, we can sometimes get bogged down into, breaking claims down into piecemeal type activities throughout the life of the claim. But if we can set a clear claim strategy at the commencement, we can sort of set that claim up for success from day one. I think it's really important that we set expectations, both with our brokers and our clients, around what that strategy may look like. And we start to understand exactly what it is that's preferred in terms of communication types and how often we will be engaging with our brokers around the claims process. The other thing that I think is really important is for us to identify and address concerns as and when they arise, and sometimes even before they become an issue. So there'll be times throughout the claims process where, a competent claims handler will actually foresee that something may or may not be going to take place that may cause some concerns or set that strategy off course. And I think it's really important that we address these through the relationship that we have with our brokers, and we set that up immediately once we identify these. That then sort of sets us up to actually address those. And then nothing comes out of left field when we're walking through the claim process. I think the other thing that we've got to be just a bit careful about is when we do set these expectations that we actually meet them. I think once we set some expectations in place, it's really hard to resolve from those if that sort of strategy doesn't quite hit the mark. So the expectation setting around, brokers to clients in particular around what that process might look like, I think is extremely important. Resigning from a position where you've made promises or guarantees to a client is sometimes fatal in terms of an outcome, and it really does start to create this tension between brokers and insurers based on conversations that insurers might not even be aware that happened in the background.
That's great, thank you. Communication is obviously critical. How important is the relationship between the broker and the insurer in maintaining high communication levels? And how can those relationships be nurtured and protected?
Yeah, look, for me, commercial insurance has always been a relationship business. it's all based on the relationship that you have through your brokers, through your supply chain, and brokers with their end insured clients as well. So in terms of the relationship piece, John, you know, for me, the relationship is the strongest part of the claims process. Having those, you know, ingrained relationships with our broking partners really allows us to have more open and transparent and honest conversations around a claim, the process, the complexities, you know, putting that empathy into your thought process. And it also allows you to address, you know, any sort of sticking points and get you to the crux of the issue a lot quicker when you feel like you can have those honest, transparent conversations. I think, you know, the industry's moved a little bit now, and I think, you know, as an insurer working with brokers in particular, there's this real drive towards working together to achieve better outcomes for customers. And I really feel like we've developed a lot as an industry in the last sort of 10 to 15 years in that regard. And the customer's really at the forefront of almost every insurer's mandate around, you know, customer obsession. So I think, you know, as I said, we're driving towards putting a customer back into the position they were prior to the loss. And I think the relationship that we have with those brokers is paramount to actually getting that done. We've seen insurers over the last sort of few years, probably up to 10 years really, develop relationship roles in claims areas. And prior to that, they didn't exist. You had underwriters, you had salespeople, you had BDMs, but the claims process and bridging that gap between a claims team and a broking team was actually absent. And we've started to see a lot of insurers build relationship roles in claims into their structures.
Brilliant. Claudia, let's turn to you. In today's business environment, communication can take place in so many different ways. What channels does Vero use, and how does it make sure they're a good fit for brokers and clients?
Yeah, so the Vero brand deals exclusively with brokers and intermediaries, and we want to make sure that we're basically meeting their needs in terms of communication and what's going to suit them. So we do have a few different options available for our brokers in terms of communication. So for an example of that, lodgements, they can lodge a claim over the phone, via email, our website, or a physical claim form. And then once that claim is lodged and assigned to a claim specialist to manage for them, we'll make contact with them to really determine what they need from us in terms of communication. Do they want to be contacted over the phone for any updates or via email? And we'll really work alongside them to make sure that we're meeting their needs and setting the right expectations and having the right conversations as well.
Brilliant. And Anna, what works well from a broker's perspective, and what can happen if communication fails during a claim?
Yeah, look, you know, when brokers and insurers communicate well on a claim, it leads to faster claims processing. You know, you're able to address and resolve issues as soon as possible, and, you know, ensures that, you know, it's a positive experience for all. You know, being able to have these open, honest and transparent discussions, you know, leads to the ultimate goal, which is resolving the insured's claim as quickly as possible. You know, unfortunately, when there is a breakdown in communication, it's not a good experience for anybody involved, and ultimately it affects the you know, the client and the insured. So you know, it leads to delayed claims. It's disorganized, and yeah, again, it's just a really frustrating experience. So I think, you know, the brokers and the insurers must ensure that they stay engaged. You know, we set really clear expectations and timeframes around processing. You know, to make sure that, you know, it is a quality process of a claim.
Right. You covered a bit of this already, but what do you think brokers can do themselves to help build those relationships and expedite claims?
You know, for me, I say, you know, obviously the broker is that middle layer between the insurer and the insured. So, you know, building trust and you know, collaboration with the insurer and both parties will enhance the claims experience. So, you know, it is essential that, you know, we keep those lines of communication open. So, you know, having those phone conversations and picking up the phone and speaking to somebody and finding out what's going on with the claim. And then also to, sending an email, but just making sure that we are really clear in what's needed. From a broker's perspective, we need to make sure that we have proactive involvement in the claim, working together with the insurer to facilitate fast resolutions, address the issues, and just being there and being present. You can't just lodge the claim and just leave it and let it run and not have that involvement in it, because it'll just fall by the wayside. So it's really important that we are continuing to talk and communicate, and I can't stress this enough. The best way that we can expedite a claim is to ensure that us from the broking side, that we make sure that we put forward really quality claim submissions. I think yes, we might not have all the information at the time of lodgement, but putting forward a quality submission with what we've got at the time will lead to a lot less, of the back and forth. And as soon as we do have information, we'll certainly provide that. But, in my experience, when you are putting forward a half-baked claim, all it does is add to the frustration and a breakdown in the relationship. So I'm sure Michael and Claudia can both agree, that a quality claim submission does make all the difference.
Great stuff. Back to you, Claudia. How do you think technology could change communication around claims in future?
Yeah, I think that technology will have the ability to provide some more real-time and quicker notifications with our brokers and allow more transparency and visibility on claims. And in turn, that should help reduce some delays, and they can keep across the claim and those updates in a much quicker manner. I think things like system integration will assist with creating less manual work and duplicating effort in terms of transferring reports from one system to another. And AI could really have the ability to reduce those more admin-related tasks like lodgements and follow-ups for documentation and information that we need to progress a claim. So that way our claims teams can really channel that skill and expertise that they have into those more complex matters that are requiring that attention and detail. And that way we can also then focus on maintaining those relationships and communication with the brokers on those claims. And I think, technology is definitely going to have its efficiencies, but it's really important to note that it will never replace the engagement and relationship between a broker and an insurer.
And Anna, would brokers welcome increased use of technology, or are some of them wary?
Look, I do agree with Claudia, and that I don't think that the technology will replace that human engagement that is required between the broker and insurer. However, I do welcome what the future technology will bring to maybe some of the smaller, less complex claims, so that we can remove some of that admin that keeps us bogged down with the smaller claims. But I am wary as to how the insurers are going to look to implement this technology, the types of claims that they would use it for, and the technology itself. So I think time will tell that and we'll have a look and see what comes out and how it's going to be used. But ultimately, I don't think that it's going to replace the need for the human oversight between the broker and the insurer, on those more complex claims, because, I do feel that, with those types of claims, the insureds need their hands held through the process, and, we need to have the difficult conversations, and I don't think the technology is going to remove that in the future.
Excellent. I know that when we did a survey of brokers shortly after COVID lockdowns, there were many who were concerned that they weren't able to get people on the phone as often as they had previously. So it's obviously very important to brokers to be able to get someone on the phone when they need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Michael, in summary, how do you see the future of claims management playing out?
look, I think there will come a time where we're almost having machines making decisions. And I think, you know, a lot of the tech companies are starting to play around with that AI technology now. And so at some stage in the future, you will see zero-touch claims being handled and managed by insurers. And for me, that sort of questions not the relationship as such, but what does the claim team of the future actually look like? Are we recruiting for tech people that are actually just reviewing decisions made by machines rather than claims experts and relationship managers? I think, you know, we're at a very early stage of that journey. So, you know, I don't think AI is really the silver bullet to all of this. I think it really complements the claims proposition and how we're trying to remove those sort of, you know, remove the work involved in managing those smaller, less complex, low dollar value claims. And to Claudia and Anna's point, and we're sort of redirecting our resources and our capacity into those claims that actually really require that additional support and communication. So I think, you know, as I said, I don't think AI is the silver bullet for now. I think there is a little bit of danger around machines making decisions in this space, and there's a lot of work going behind the scenes to ensure that these decisions that are being made are actually the correct ones. And it's being heavily supported by, you know, claims experts and claims technical people that actually can sign off and say that that is the correct way and the correct strategy for a claim to move forward. You know, we've spoken about it at length already, but, you know, that machines are never going to replace the relationship piece between a broker and an insurer. There's always going to be a percentage of claims that require human intervention and that relationship piece to get the right result. But I think technology certainly plays a part. To be a little bit controversial, if I'm thinking about AI, my concern with the AI generation of the future is that we sort of create this huge gap in learning in the insurance claim space. We take away some of those early decision-making, those easy decision-making factors, which is where most of our claims people sort of dip their toe in the water in relation to future claims management. So by replacing those sort of decisions with AI and machine learning, where do we get our next tranche of insurance experts and claims experts from? And how do they actually build into these experts of the future? I think if you ask most people that have landed in claims, they've started in that sort of low dollar value, less complex claims areas, and they've worked their way through education, through experience, through tenure. And by having AI sort of jump in and take that away, I have some concerns about what the insurance industry looks like going forward.
Great stuff. Well, we do have quite a few questions here, so we'll get stuck into some of them. Can any of you give any real-world examples where collaboration helped progress a complex claim?
And I can certainly think of a number of claims. I won't give a specific example because I'm likely to breach someone's privacy somewhere. So
no need for names, yeah.
So I mean, I can talk about my team, the relationship managers that I have sitting, you know, around most states within Australia, and a lot of the escalations that we actually get are really based around communication and a communication breakdown. And because our key focus and the key part of our role is in relation to, you know, relationship management, we actually can, you know, call our broking contacts and have an open, honest conversation around why we are where we are and what is the sticking point between, you know, us and them and the insured on a particular claim. So, you know, to give you an example, you know, it could be anything from, you know, applying an exclusion to a policy, applying a sublimit, applying, you know, business interruptions or underinsurance. And, you know, everybody's got an opinion on how, you know, they should be assessed. And whilst the policy is quite clear as to how we actually assess those losses, there can still be a difference of opinion in terms of how much these claims are actually valued at. And so working through a relationship You know, it could be a negotiation, it could be putting a position forward and working from there. That's exactly how key relationships in our industry work, and getting to a, you know, common ground.
Brilliant. And another question you kind of already answered, but where communication breaks down, what tools or processes have proven most effective in re-establishing that connection quickly?
Yeah, look, for me, from my perspective on that, you know, when that communication does break down, you know, I'm on the phone the very second to, you know, speak to the claims handler, find out what's going on, you know, and I'm very much one of, you know, following, you know, the appropriate chains of command. You know, I'm not going to go and call the claims relationship manager straight away to escalate it to the top of the chain. Because, you know, I do want to give the claims handler the opportunity to tell me what's going on, and why things have gone the way that they are, and why, you know, there has been a breakdown in communication. And, you know, if I'm unable to resolve it with them at that point, you know, then I'll follow the chain on to the team lead and have a discussion. You know, whilst, you know, it's super important that you know, we do have, and I do have the relationships with the claims relationship managers, you know, it's not always necessary that things need to go right to the top of the chain. You know, there are going to be certain claims where yep, you're going to have to go right to the top. But I'm a true believer in giving the person who's actually managing the day-to-day aspects of the claim an opportunity for us to get things back on track. And I just find that everything can get misconstrued and misunderstood in an email. And so picking up a phone, having a conversation with someone can, you know, resolve the issues 9 times out of 10. And I think, you know, as we're working these days with emails and sending more and more emails and speaking less, that's a lot of the time where the breakdown comes through. So for me, you know, I start at that point, have a conversation, and then, you know, if it needs to go further, then it certainly does. But, you know, I really think, you know, just making sure you have a conversation can resolve things relatively quickly.
Great stuff. Now we mentioned the importance of balancing technology and personal relationships. What are the practical ways brokers can maintain strong personal connections in an increasingly digital environment?
You know, I think from my perspective, it's you know, still continuing to, you know, keep the relationships that we have. You know, I don't just call, you know, my claims relationship manager at Vero just to, you know, call them with complaints. You know, I'll always, you know, look to have a chat, have those, you know, quarterly discussions and talk about what's going on and have an understanding of, you know, what are the things that are impacting, say Vero on their end, and how I can distribute that information to the other brokers, to the other claim staff, so that we can have an understanding of where they're at on their side of things, and you know, give a little bit of, you know, breathing space to be able to get you know, the appropriate updates that we need, but understand, you know, that they've got their pressures as well. And I think, you know, for me, it's not a us versus them mentality. It's that we're all here to work together for the greater good of the insured, and to try and find a way to resolve their claims. And so, you know, it's super important to, you know, have these relationships, you know, so when we need to call on them, we certainly will.
I think it's a great question, John, and I echo all of Anna's sentiments there. I think it's a real challenge. I think it's a real challenge for brokers, especially the generation and age gap in, you know, claims people coming into our industry and into our industry generally, not just claims. I think, you know, I'm a bit old fashioned, you know, when we had claims decisions, when I was managing claims, the only way you did it was face to face. And then email came in. And so we're on this, you know, journey of technology improvements in the way that we work. But I think, you know, the challenge for the people in the industry is we are so technology focused now, whether it's electronic emails, you know, online portals, AI, you know, chat GPT options. it's a challenge for everyone in the industry to maintain those relationships. So, you know, industry forums, educational pieces, insurance conferences, all of those things that get you out into the market to talk to your peers face to face. And as Anna said, understand what's happening in the industry that's sitting behind some of these things that they're experiencing. We don't always get it right. And there's normally reasons for that. I don't know anyone in the industry that sets out to deliberately not drive a claim forward or do something, you know, malicious that's going to set a claim off track. But we're so focused on what we've got at hand that we can sometimes forget about the longer picture and the bigger picture and the journey that we're on.
Now, today we focus mainly on the insurer-broker dynamic, but there are other critical players in the claims conversation. You know, there could be builders, experts, and so on, and of course the client. But does the collaboration between the broker and the insurer help set the tone for those interactions with other parties?
Yeah, I can jump into that, and Claudia and Anna, you can sort of chime in if you need to. I think part of my role, John, is to also look at our supply chain, in particular our builders and our loss adjusters. And the one thing that we talk to our panel about is that whilst we are appointing them, realistically, we aren't their customer. Well, we are, but we're not. We want them to see the broker and the end insured as their customer. And I think that's a real key driver for them. We acknowledge that they're an extension of our business. So when they go out onto site, whether it's, you know, to adjust the claim or whether to start building processes, they may as well be wearing a Vero red shirt, because the client is not looking at them thinking that they're a builder of, you know, somebody else. They're our builders. So they are a real extension of us. They're at a critical point. They're a critical point in the supply chain, and they're a critical point in the claims process as well. So they do play, you know, a vital role in the success of these claims, and we should be working what they do into our strategy when it comes to moving these claims forward. You know, and again, communication's key. We want them communicating with our brokers. We want them communicating with our insureds to talk to them about the process and what is going to happen throughout the life of this claim.
Great.
I mean, for me, you know, I make sure that I apply the same principles with my relationships with the insurers in the same way I do with the loss adjusters, you know, builders, because at the end of the day, you know, they're doing the reporting. A lot of the time I need to, you know, get understanding of, you know, where they're at, and, you know, ensuring that I've got a quality relationship with them as well, to make sure that they're adhering to the same timeframes, getting their reports into the insurer so that claims decisions can be made. So sometimes I am, again, finding myself as that middle person, you know, to continue to help push that along, so that we're all adhering to the right timeframes and getting the results for the client. So those relationships are equally as important as the insurer relationships.
Great stuff. So yeah, there's a few more audience questions. We'll try and get through them. Michael, I'm interested to hear how you build relationships with brokers and find the Goldilocks balance of relationship development and maintenance between claims and underwriting / distribution. How do you ensure it's not too much or too little?
That is a great question. And the best way for me to answer that is understanding who your broker is and what they want from you. I think, you know, we tread that fine line between being of service and being a pest in terms of building that relationship. So there's a real balancing act there for us. I think for me, in terms of, you know, managing that relationship, it's understanding your broker, understanding what drives them, what are their pain points, what can you support them with. You know, there's a bit of a salesy element to our relationship, management. We're talking about the things that we're doing to make their life easier. We're talking about the processes and innovative solutions that we're putting in place to get better customer outcomes. And so it's not all about claims escalations for us. It's not about responding to issues. It's about, you know, getting proactive and talking about how we actually, can drive, customer obsession and create, a great customer experience for their clients. So look, again, there's no real golden rule that I would say in relation to managing that relationship. I think the biggest tension for us is when we're talking to brokers about policy decisions and coverage decisions, and those opinions are sort of stressed between claims, underwriting, and the broker. I think that's where the real tension is, and that's where the relationship piece really comes into play. Being able to facilitate a discussion. You're almost acting as a mediator. I talk about our role. We're sort of part psychologist, part claims handler, part mediator, part facilitator. Our skill set is quite broad, and depending on what's needed depends on where we play. So it's that real facilitation of discussion and collaboration, which is exactly what this webinar is about. It's getting parties together at the right level to have these discussions to work through.
Right. Now this one's more a statement than a question. It just says, I believe AI for claims is inevitable based on current technology that is driven by major companies simplifying the underwriting of risks. Does that make sense to people? Anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it's inevitable. It's going to come. We're probably not that far away. And if we're talking, I sort of said at the start, if we sort of remove the low dollar, less complex claims, if you add those back into the mix, I think we're almost there, John, to be honest. I can see a time, in the not too distant future where a broker or a client will log on, lodge a claim, will be able to appoint a loss adjuster, appoint a builder, make the appointment for these guys to come out on site, do the rectification work. Those invoices will be scanned back to the insurer. No one will look at it. An AI/bot will review the relevancy and the fair and reasonableness of those invoices, and the claims will be paid without any human interaction. So I actually don't think we're that far away from that. I think, as I said earlier, we've just got to be careful that, we get that right. And I think we're in the early stages now where we've got to really test those concepts and test those decision-making of our machines before we actually start letting the world run riot with bots making decisions, that were once made by, claims experts.
Excellent. Here's another one. When the claims decision is made, do you think BDM or client relationship manager has the power to influence the decision to be overturned?
Look, I don't think so. I think they can definitely help facilitate a conversation and conversations that can be made. But when a decision is made on a claim and it's made on its merits, unless there's any additional information that can dispute the decision, I don't think necessarily going to a BDM or a client relationship manager will automatically go, okay, yeah, we'll accept the claim. There'd have to be some new information, or you could further dispute your case to support why the claim should be accepted. So whilst they're there to help and support, the decision doesn't lie solely with them. There's many other parties involved in the chain of the claim as to whether a claim's getting accepted or declined.
And I think from that, Anna, I totally agree. I think what escalating a claim to a BDM or a CRM like myself will do is potentially take that pure technical decision making out to some extent, and we apply a more probably commercial relationship lens. So to Anna's point, we're not just going to overturn a claim based on it being escalated to a BDM or a CRM. But what we will do is we'll highlight potentially, the tenure or the loyalty or the value of a particular client. We might talk about, other, ambiguous areas of particular claims that we've seen in the past or decisions that we've made that might support overturning a claim. But those guys, well, BDMs in particular, have no authority to overturn any claims anywhere. They're a sales function. They don't have a claims delegation. And the CRMs would have a little bit more of an influence in that space. But we've got to be careful too in that regard. You know, we can't be setting precedents on claims that aren't covered and are paid simply because of a relationship. And then we also have to be careful about, you know, overriding our claims handlers' decision-making and setting this expectation that regardless of what the claims handler says, if these claims are escalated, that someone from my team or the relationship space will just simply come in and overturn them. So there's a real balancing act there too that we've got to be really careful about.
And I think from a claims perspective, like when we are making a decision, we really take the time to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row when we are making that decision. And then we really want to convey clearly the reasons why and help educate the broker and the customer, or share whatever knowledge we have as to how we've actually arrived to that decision as well. And it's not as simple as just passing this letter on and that be done with it as well. So again, really communicating with them and having that open conversation.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, here's another one. At times, working with loss adjusters seems to be a challenge. I should say the loss adjusters aren't here to defend themselves, but loss adjusters won't communicate with the broker, and claims processes can be prolonged, specifically with householders' policies. Any response to that one?
Look, well, from my experience, I haven't found that to be the case, and I might, you know, be one of the few who might experience that. But I'm very clear in my lodgements to the insurers to state that, you know, I am heavily involved in the claim. I want the adjuster to call me. And I usually have a conversation with them at the beginning to say, this is the level of expectation that I have from you. These are the updates that I would like. Please keep me involved in correspondence. And I do push hard on that. Because I think if I just leave them to their own devices, then yeah, sure, they're not going to keep me updated. They're not going to report back to me. And again, I am here to help in facilitating the process. If they need help in getting information from my client, then I am here to help them through that process. So it's a shame that, you know, the person who wrote that comment is feeling that. Maybe they should just look at, you know, putting their foot down a little bit with it and asking to be kept involved and updated, and that might go a long way in helping them resolve that issue.
I also think, John, just going back to my earlier comment, this is where having a clear understanding of who the customer is and what the communication flow looks like, you know, helps set the claim up for success. So, you know, I'd be surprised if loss adjusters aren't doing that, but again, on the reverse, you know, I'm not sure what their mandate is around communication. You know, it should be to broker and client, as well as the insurer who's, you know, providing them with the instructions to, you know, to work on these particular claims. So, yeah.
Great stuff. And as we've been discussing this, there's been a few people pitch in to say that they agree with Anna. I find loss adjusters quite helpful and professional, and a few other comments like that. So, yeah, both sides of the coin there. How about this? Knowing that interpretation of exclusions/limits can be a negotiation between brokers and insurers, do you believe there is a risk of AI exposing embedded ambiguity in insurance policies?
You or me, Anna?
I'll leave that one for you.
I don't think so. I think, I mean, you have a real struggle with ambiguities in wording because, you know, we try and word our policies, our exclusions, and our endorsement in common language that everybody understands to remove that ambiguity. And insurers face pretty heavy penalties if the intent doesn't match the words. So, you know, it's a really good question around how AI might impact that. I would suggest that we probably don't see as many of those ambiguous wordings and exclusions and endorsements in our world too much anymore. That's not to say that they aren't there, especially those sort of bespoke endorsements and exclusions. You know, we've got a pretty standard suite of policy wordings that we use and that we sell. But yeah, look, it's a great question. I actually don't know how to answer the AI question about exposing those ambiguities. I'll be interested to see. I think, as I said, we're in the early stages of technology and AI, and how that plays out. It could be one of the things that sort of drags out. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. There's one here, it's fairly broad, but it says, I'm interested in what information insurers provide to their brokers as to how they manage the claims process on behalf of their clients.
Yeah, so we'll communicate with brokers what kind of information it is that we need in order to progress their claim. And then as we receive documentation, reports and so on that are helping us, make a decision on that claim, we'll share that with our brokers so they're across, what we're reviewing and what's helping us make those decisions. Hope that answers part of that question.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah.
Well, I think certainly in relation to declines, we've got an obligation under the code to provide any information that we've used to arrive at that decision. So to Claudia's point, in the initial assessment, provided there's no real concerns with the claim, I think, we probably don't provide all of the information that we've used to assess the claim because, a lot of these things just get pushed through and we get them resolved and there's no real contentious issues. Anything where we feel like, there's a bit of might be a dispute or an objection to an assessment of a claim, then the information will be provided. And then on the extreme, if we are actually declining, we have to actually provide the information that we've relied upon to arrive at that decision. So, I think, from a communication relationship perspective, if there's more information that brokers need us to provide when we're resolving claims, we've got cash settlement fact sheets now, which is an obligation for us to provide where we've got options in relation to repair or cash settling. So there's more information there, but I don't think any insurer would have any objection to providing any information that they've used to assess a claim.
Great stuff. Well, we're about out of time. So is there anything any of the panelists want to pitch in before we sign off?
Not really. I think, from my perspective, John, a lot of the things that we've spoken about today aren't sort of, groundbreaking or earth-shattering concepts. I think it's really just about, continuing to engage with your insurer partners if you're a broker on the line, and if you're an insurer to engage with your broking partners. It really goes a long way to addressing and sort of avoiding any of these claims going off the rails, and makes for a smoother transition. As I said, we're all in the same boat, broker insurer here. We are here for the end client. We are here to put them in the position that they were pre-loss. We don't deliberately, force claims down a path that we don't think they should be on. We don't always get it right, and communication is a way to really get that back on track and get it on track really quickly. So that would be my only closing comments to make.
Great stuff. There is actually a last-minute question here or statement. I think it's come from a loss adjuster. At times, working with brokers seems to be a challenge. Brokers won't communicate with the loss adjusters, and the claims process can be prolonged. So I guess what this shows is that you need both parties committed to communication, don't you? Because it can fail at either end if not.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that, and I understand, what they're saying in that statement, because I think it definitely works both ways. And so, again, it all comes down to what we've been talking about today, and why the communication piece is so important, and how when there is that breakdown in communication, it just leads the whole entire claims process to completely unravel. So I think that's my final statement, for today, is just really ensuring that we keep those lines of communication open. Don't be afraid to have the conversations and pick up the phone and speak to the people that you need to speak to, because you'll get a result one way or the other.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I'm afraid that really is all we've got time for. So thank you to all three of you for taking part today, and thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.